They should have never let the Golden State Warriors draft Patrick Baldwin Jr. As you all know, the Golden State Warriors coaching staff have actually come out to the public saying that Patrick Baldwin Jr. has been a standout in training sessions and has also been impressing other NBA players such as Steph, Klay, and Draymond. So in today's video, we're going to be going through 5 underrated reasons why I think Patrick Baldwin Jr. is a perfect fit for the Warriors and how he can help them win another NBA championship. So don't forget to like this video, and if you want more Golden State Warriors content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that red button down below. Guys, 98% of you are still not subscribed, so it'd mean the world if you could subscribe to the channel. But let's get straight into the first reason, and the first reason being Patrick Baldwin Jr.'s great athleticism. As you all know, Patrick Baldwin Jr. is a very lanky and tall player, and I think it really does help him become a great all-around scorer, and it can also make him play in a positionless basketball game. He honestly is continuing to improve his game as time goes on, and obviously that comes with development, but when it comes to natural sheer raw athleticism, he definitely stands above the crowd. Patrick Baldwin Jr. stands at 6'9", 220 pounds and has great athleticism, especially vertically. He could jump very, very high. Now, first starting off with his height at 6'9", this makes him a very, very big guard. Now, he also does play small forward position, but I do see him playing more of that small forward, power forward position, especially at 6'9". Obviously, the NBA today is more of small ball, so 6'9", some teams actually have a 6'9" center, so for him to be standing that tall, he can definitely run the power forward and also be a big power forward at that, and I think that's amazing. Now, he isn't the biggest guy, he's not DeMarcus Cousins size, he stands at 220 pounds, so he's pretty lean. It does help him, however, be very quick, especially for his size, guys. I think he can move very, very well, quick on his feet defensively, and he can also, run the floor very, very well, and I think it matches very well with the Golden State Warriors because they are a very fast-paced team. We know Steph, we know Klay, they love to push the floor up, get some threes up, or get quick buckets, and I think Patrick Baldwin Jr. with his great athleticism does play a huge part. Now, he doesn't have a crazy athleticism where he's jumping around the gym like Andrew Wiggins. However, standing at 6'9", he doesn't need a huge vertical, but he has enough for him to be able to grab boards very effectively, deflect shots, deflect passes, all that good stuff, and I think he can do a really great job, especially on the defensive end, standing at 6'9" and being quick around the feet and have some great verticals. So, although people have been very, very successful in the NBA, in today's NBA as well, not having great athleticism such as Jokic or such as Luka Doncic, obviously having athleticism on your side definitely does play a huge part, and it does help here and there. So I think it's great to see a 6'9" player who's very, very tall have that great athleticism, and it makes the other teams very scared of him. So reason number 2 is Patrick Baldwin Jr. has great IQ. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because Steve Kerr himself actually said in a recent interview saying that Patrick Baldwin Jr. has a very high IQ despite the fact him not even playing 1 ounce of NBA. And I think this really does show because in these training sessions, obviously Patrick Baldwin Jr. is going up some, NBA players, people that are experienced in the space of basketball, maybe marking Steph, Klay, Andrew Wiggins, all that stuff. But he seems to be able to handle his own if Steve Kerr has such great things to say about him already such early in the season, pretty much preseason. So I honestly think that is fantastic to hear about Patrick Baldwin Jr. High IQ is very important, and a lot of people really don't understand how important it actually is. You see a lot of successful players who don't even have great athleticism, but with great IQ, they've been able to honestly be great at their positions. So an example of this are a lot of point guards. You see people like Chris Paul. Although Chris Paul didn't have the greatest playoff run we've ever seen last season, and it did, hurt his legacy a little bit, Chris Paul is still a great player, and it really does show that he's brought this team to the finals, or even conference finals time and time again, due to the fact that he is able to actually, use his IQ to the best of their ability and help his team win. Another player is Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo, another great point guard, only stands 6'1", 6 foot as well, but he was able to be such an elite point guard, especially for the teams such as Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers, for example, as well. So there was a lot of teams he did play very well for, and I think that definitely does show why IQ is so important and why Steve Kerr makes it such an important thing for them to have great IQ. So Patrick Baldwin Jr., what that high IQ will really do, it will help him really adjust to the NBA game. Obviously NBA is very different to college basketball. Although people say, college is still at one of the highest levels, some people say college is more exciting. I don't really agree with that, but when it comes to all of that, I do think the transition from a 19, 20-year-old kids from college going into the NBA, it can be very tough. And that's why you always see sometimes, first picks, second picks, or even third picks, sometimes they are a bit of a bust when they come into the NBA because they can't adjust that well. So I think Patrick Baldwin Jr. coming at such a very low pick as well. On top of that, having great IQ, being able to be coached and have the experience playing basketball, I think has really helped him become a great player, and it's only going to take full effect when he starts entering into NBA games. Reason number 3 is Patrick Baldwin Jr. is a score-first type forward, and I think this is really important to see. Now, if we look at the Golden State Warriors right now, we have players such as Draymond Green, we have Kevon Looney running that big man, we now have someone like JaMychal Green, James Wiseman, just to name a few, and potentially there are other players that may be coming to the team that we don't know of, but for those 4, what do they all have in common? None of them are really scoring type big men. They're not really scores type. James Wiseman, yes, he can, shoot the 3 a little bit, shoot the mid-range, has a great inside game, but when it comes to pure scoring where if you give him the ball, he'll be able to get you a bucket automatically, there really isn't anyone out of those 4 that I mentioned that really is a walking bucket. And I think Patrick Baldwin Jr. is perfect for that. Of course, we do have scorers such as Steph, Klay, Andrew Wiggins already on the team, Jordan Poole as well, so there really isn't need for another scorer. However, I think it is still good to have someone like Patrick Baldwin Jr. as a forward who is able to, get you a bucket, maybe in the post, maybe in the mid-range, or maybe running that pick and pop and shooting that 3. So I think that's really important. Draymond Green doesn't really score anymore. You can tell he's just turned into a playmaking power forward. Kevon Looney, James Wiseman, JaMychal Green, they're probably just going to be scrap type players where, their points are usually coming from second chance buckets, them getting a rebound and putting it up. But out of all those 4 guys, if you add Patrick Baldwin Jr., Baldwin Jr. will probably be the only player out of those 4 that I would pass to on the wing, pass to in the post, and have him go to work to get us a bucket. Last season, actually for college, he actually averaged 12.1 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 1.5 assists, which was really good, despite the fact that he was only playing 23 minutes per game and only played 11 games as well. So in college, guys, as you all know, college, they don't really have those things where it's like, one star player, he drops 30, and then the rest of the team just has to follow. In college, guys, everyone's playing together. No one likes to play selfish. That's basically how college basketball is. So if you're averaging around, 12 and above points all the way up to 20, 25, you are honestly killing it in the NCAA. So Baldwin Jr. to be able to average those stats with such little minutes and only playing a couple of games of college, it really does show that Baldwin Jr. is very experienced and he plays very mature for his age despite being only 19 years old. Reason number 4 is Patrick Baldwin Jr.'s playstyle matches the Golden State Warriors. Now, as you all know, I think this is probably one of the most important things when it comes to adding a player to a team, whether when we got Dante DiVincenzo, Mac McClung, other players such as JaMychal Green. One thing I really did want to know was how is their playstyle and does it contribute or even have a greater effect when it does add that to the Golden State Warriors current roster. Now, as you all know, Golden State Warriors play a very fast-paced game, a lot of threes, a lot of quick shots, in the first 8 to 10 seconds, and they don't really like to set up plays or anything like that and usually love to run motion. Now, when it comes to Patrick Baldwin Jr., the way I see him playing is very much like that. He knows how to move off ball very well, and I think that's what makes Golden State Warriors so dangerous. Steph Curry, although he is a point guard, the way he scores compared to Kyrie is completely different. Steph will run around screens, run to the corner, run to the 45, and eventually get open, get a shot up, and then he can score like that. Kyrie, on the other hand, he'll probably grab the ball, ask for an ISO, and for the next 8 to 10 seconds, or maybe even someone like James Harden, for the next 8 to 10 seconds, they'll try to get a bucket. If they don't, they'll just pass it off. So you see the way the play styles are very different. Curry makes a move in 5 to 6 seconds. If he doesn't get the bucket, or if he doesn't get a good look, he'll pass it off, run around, and try to find another opening. And off-ball movement is very important. I think that's what really makes Golden State Warriors so dangerous. No one really runs around the court like them, especially for Steph, Klay, Wiggins, all that good stuff, and they really do fit that motion type play style. Patrick Baldwin Jr., on the other hand, I think he fits that perfectly. He's not the type of player that needs 10, 11 seconds in order to get a bucket. He can definitely, shoot spot up. He can shoot off one dribble. He can get rebounds and just put in another second chance bucket. There's a lot of way for him to actually score, and I think that's what really helps him become a vital asset for this Golden State Warriors team, especially the fact that we lost players such as Otto Porter Jr., GP the second, and JTA. NBA. So obviously with players leaving, there's obviously new players that need to fill that, and Patrick Baldwin Jr. can definitely fill that position, I think, and can really help them out in the power forward and center position when it comes to scoring and also fitting that play style. Reason number 5, and this is more from the business side of things, but Patrick Baldwin Jr. has been super cheap for the Golden State Warriors. So Patrick Baldwin Jr. only signed a couple of million a year because he is still going to be on a rookie type contract for the next 2 to 3 years. Now, when it comes to all this, I think this is very important because obviously Patrick Baldwin Jr. and his actual development is going to be happen within the next first 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 years. So I think it really is important to get him for very, very cheap. Now, I heard it is going to be a 4-year deal. So it's just north of 2.1 million in his rookie season, then 2.3, and then 2.4 in the 3rd year, and then 4.3 in the 4th year. So by 4 years, I think he can honestly become a great player, and there's also team options included, all that good jazz. So when it comes to Patrick Baldwin Jr., I think he can develop very, very fast, and if he does develop very fast, they have a great player on their hands for only a couple of million a year. We know why, GP the second, we all know why Otto Porter and JTA left. Obviously they did want to stay, but the money was obviously better somewhere else, and obviously coming off an NBA championship, Gary Payton the second, this is where his market value is at the top. Same with Otto Porter, same with JTA, and obviously they're going to catch that bag more than, winning another NBA championship. But each their own. I know I get a lot of comments from you guys saying, oh, they got greedy. It's hard to really see that. It's hard to really understand because we're not really in that position. But I think Patrick Baldwin Jr. is honestly going to be fantastic, guys. I'm so excited to see him next season. Let me know down in the comments what you think he will actually average and what you think of him, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon, guys. Peace.